Welcome to the Pursuing Freedom Outdoors podcast, a place where backcountry warriors can share their stories of grit, service, healing, and wilderness adventures. I'm your host, Tom Walton, Marine Corps veteran, full-time cop, and aspiring hunting and fishing guide. Join me and others as we journey from the hood to the woods in pursuit of freedom in the outdoors. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Pursuing Freedom Outdoors podcast. I'm your host, Tom Walton, joined today by Tom Schneider for part 2 of our 2-part episode that we've done. And this episode officially kicks off Bear Month here on the Pursuing Freedom Outdoors podcast. And Bear Month is the first month of our 2-month spring hunting extravaganza, Fur and Feathers, where we get into everything bear hunting and turkey hunting, from conservation to tips and tactics from industry leaders. I am really excited about this, folks. Today, we're going to dive into bear hunting and predator management, conservation strategies, and all the above good stuff with Tom Schneider. Really enjoyed recording this episode, and I think you guys are going to love it too. Thanks for listening, and we're on to the show. Speaking of hard work, man, spring bear season's coming up, and I feel it's funny because I feel like I don't know. I don't know if I call bear hunting hard, but it's challenging, right? There's a little bit of a bear code that you have to crack, but it's like once you crack it, you kind of start seeing bears, and then the challenge can be, accessing those bears, depending on what kind of country you're hunting. But you guys hunt an incredible area for black bear. A lot of incredible bears, color phase bears, big bears. But it's really difficult hunting. So let's dive in a little bit into bear hunting since it's coming up, man. Like, give us the rundown on spring bear hunts. Like, are you, from what I gather, I think you guys are probably more hitting the real high country, right? Is that kind of where you guys are focusing in spring?
It depends. It depends on the time of the year, right? Like you got snow melting every single day. Yeah,
Yep.
so you're actively you're adaptable. Like I was telling you earlier about how Travis has naturally been adaptable. Like I always say that. Like I always give my brother props in his ability to adapt. I learned that through him, to be able to adapt and not go through the motions. And you have to be able to adapt to these bears. You have to think like it sounds cliche, right? Think like a bear, but it's like literally though, you got to think like a bear. Like what's a bear going to be doing this time of the year? And you're trying to put yourself in the shoe of a bear, not just any bear, but sorry, got a little cold. So that's why I've been sucking on cough drops, but, let me get another one. But like the big bear, like, cause big bears are going to act differently than mediocre bears. And it's the same thing. I would say the same thing with deer and elk. You got a bull elk that's 8 years old. He's 8 years old for a reason, especially on a public land general tag. He has outsmarted hunters for every single season. He's outsmarted mountain lions, bears, wolves, everything, and he's still alive. And the winter itself, like you get harsh winters, and if he endures those, these, like, it's the same thing with a big mature boar who, I killed. I'll tell you a bear that I killed. It was, gosh, what year was that? I think it was 2019 or 2020. I killed a 15-year-old boar. Massive boar. I should have honestly got that one mounted. He was a colored phase, reddish blonde. And yeah, I got him aged. So yeah, he was 15. I'm like, he has outlived and outsmarted hunters for 15 years in the mountains. And it's like, and he fell to my gun. And it wasn't a long range gun. It was a long range gun, but it wasn't a long range shot. He was only about 150 yards or something when I bumped into him. But, and again, it wasn't a fluke. I mean, obviously I think there's a percentage of that, right? Of like percentage of luck comes in the hunting, but there's a reason why there's consistency. We're consistent in harvesting bears each year. If I'm hunting. So last year I had another at a work project last year. So I actually did not harvest a bear in the year 2025. I just had too much work in the spring. So I didn't even actually go out. But previous years, when I hunt bears, I kill them. Like, and there's these windows of opportunity that we're always looking for to find those big boars. But it's fun. I love hunting. It kind of breaks up the year a little bit too, because some people like hunting turkeys in the spring. Sometimes people like, what do you think of the spring? It's turkeys, it's something else. But I love it's almost like the earth comes back alive. Does that make sense? So you're getting through this nasty, like right now, it's cloudy, winter, ugly, and there's hobbies to do right now, shed hunting or what have you. But there's something about when the snow melts and the green grass is poking through, the birds are chirping, there's the high mountain creeks are going nuts, they're just all full of just white water just coming off the mountain. It's like the earth is alive again. It's come back to life, and you get to live this through a hunt with spring bears. And so that's what I love about hunting spring bears, honestly. It's just like we're getting that first sun of the year. A lot of people are thinking of gardening. They're like, everybody's like, oh, the sun's out, the snow's melting. It's fine. It's time to garden. I'm like, to me, it's like time to hunt, time to get a good bear hunt in, and we're looking at you're seeing calves being born. So again, it's just like life is being created, you know, like newborn calves, newborn fawns, everything's coming back to their summering range, and so I just love that part. It's just awesome. And just the sound, if I close my eyes and I'm thinking of bear hunting right now, it's me looking through a spotting scope and listening to creeks all around me.
Yeah, just you
That's my
talking about it has
yeah.
got me. I'm just like, oh man, I can obviously having spent a lot of time bear hunting in the spring, and I do love turkey hunting in the spring as well. But it is 100% that green grass, those roaring creeks. I mean, you nailed the description perfectly. You took me right there right now. I was like, okay, let's
And
go
yeah, yeah,
spring.
trying to paint a picture in everybody's head,
Yeah,
but I'm like,
you
I
nailed
love,
it.
like, I love that feeling. But yeah, it's a good way to, get the gun out too and wipe the dust off. Like, all right, you know,
Yep.
it's no, and it's really technically not that long because like the last time I shot the gun is in November at a mule deer. So it's like, obviously you want to practice before the hunt, but it's like, it's good that I like to shoot a bear to prep myself for the fall. It's like, it just kind of breaks up the year a little bit. Like, okay, been a couple months since I killed something. I
Yep.
better get it done again. But then it actively changes. What I think is unique with nature is it's actively changing too, right? So like if the early part of bear season, you're watching the snow melt, and as this like new greenery pops up every single day, new things are happening every single day in the mountains. And so it kind of leaves this, it's just exciting, and things change so much every single day. And yeah, I look forward to it. It's really hard to explain. But
Right.
I love chasing those big boars. Those big boars, they're a little what's the word? They're a lot like I talked about earlier, they're a lot smarter, and so where they place their dens are gonna be a lot different than a younger boar. Where they start feeding is gonna be a lot different. A lot of it just has to do with its previous experiences in life, and so you have to capitalize on that, if you're trying to do it with a rifle, if you're trying to do it with the bow and arrow. We don't do bait. We only do I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to shooting a bear off bait, but the type of hunt we're talking about it's mainly spawn stock. And my brother Travis, he very much likes the challenge, and so he's actually killed quite a few with a bow, spawn stock, just spawn stalking them while they're grazing on fresh green grass.
Yeah,
And
that's pretty impressive, man. That's not an easy feat for sure. And just kind of like to get listeners focused, if I'm coming up to the mountain early to mid season of bear season, I know typically I have found my best success mid May and on. And I think for me, I'm just not like the earlier season. I haven't figured out how to access target those bears better. And so that's what I want to kind of get into. But I know when I go like maybe mid May, I'm pretty confident I'm going to go pull my binos up, know where to look at, where the grass is the right kind of green, where the snow melts at. And I mean, it just seems like those bears pop in those green areas, or what, maybe walking, still hunting along some of those logging roads a couple miles back where they got good sun exposure. But if we're trying to, and I'll tell you, like the majority of the bears I see aren't big shooter boars, right? They're a lot younger boars or whatever. If I'm trying to find those old 15-year-old type boars, man, like what if it's starting like an earlier in the season, say it's more into April or first week of May, what's the kind of the typical process you're going through when you're starting to pick what terrain and where on the mountain you're going to try to end up?
Yeah. So I'd say again, it's different for everybody, but the first places that the snow melts is on rocks. And so if you guys notice, like, and you can go in the middle of winter, like right now, let's say you go out on a sunny day in the snow, touch a rock with your hands, feel how warm it is. That one of the first places, and this is, I've learned this too, finding elk sheds, because elk shed in March and April. But around those big rocks in the high elevation, like that's where the first green grass grows. And because those rocks are sticking out and they just hold heat. And so it heats up the soil around it. And so you'll get this ring of green grass. It may be like, really high in elevation. There may be not green grass at all, but around that rock, there's a layer of green grass growing around that thing. And critters are on that, and a big boar, you know, he's, he's going to place his den to where he's not going to get, like one of those rude washouts like what you did. We get that warm weather that kicks in, and he's going to place a spot where it's going to stay nice and cool, where he's not going to wake, where his den's not going to get flooded out. He's going to have a rude awakening in the middle of the winter. And I've seen some very poor placement with dens with younger bears and that have literally flooded themselves out mid-January and February. So they have to get out of their den. And it's like, that sucks. I'm sure he's going to learn next time not to place a den right there. Right. And so some of these big boars, actually, you wouldn't believe it how high they place their dens. They go pretty high. And so some of the reasons people will say like, oh, like I want, I always say there's you hear things that people say, right? Like find the highest green on the mountain and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, but the one thing you need to ask yourself, it's not just with bears, but deer, elk, or any critter, is why. You always need to ask, why is that a thing? Why is it that the bears go after the highest green on the mountain? When you when you answer those questions, that's when you start really dialing down your success. That's where you really start finding those big boars, is you're answering those questions. Why? Don't put those questions away. Get those questions answered. And, that's the biggest thing with finding success with elk hunting, for example. It's like, okay, why is a bull elk running from me when I bugle? And some of you guys know that answer. But I mean, that all depends on the situation too, right? But same thing, you got to ask why. It's not like he's a runner. And, back when we had a lot of elk back in the day, we would just, if an elk was a runner, you would just find an elk that was want to cooperate with you. But unfortunately, we're in a situation here where the wolves have knocked a lot of our elk out. So when you find an elk that's bugling, you better do everything in your power to call that elk in, because you might not hear an elk bugle for a while. And so you learn how to dial down your success rate and how to call in that elk. It's the same thing with bear hunting. When you finally figured out why those big boars do what they do, you always need to ask why. You always need to be trying to figure things out. Like if you notice a pattern, ask yourself, why is that happening? Instead of just thinking, oh, I kill a bear here on this rock every single year, or I kill a bear right in this area every single year. Instead of just thinking that, oh, I just kill a bear here every year, ask why does that seem to be a common place for bears to pull to? Why is it? Is it the food source? Is it because that's where the first browse? Is it a spot where deer and elk like the calf? Bears are really hard on calves. I've watched plenty of calves, or I watched plenty of elk get followed around by bears because they're just waiting for the next calf to be born. Travis, there's actually a video on our YouTube channel of one of our good friends, Travis, and his friend. They watched it from a distance. This big boar following around elk herds. By the time they got there and shot the boar, they shot it off a fresh calf. because they know that those herds are giving birth to newborn calves, and it's like a dispenser, and they're just waiting for that dispenser to go off, right? So they're just like, I'm just going to hang around at a certain distance until another calf is born. Those big boars, they kind of bully themselves around. A smaller bear, on the other hand, I mean, a cow can defend itself from a smaller bear. And so you'll tend to see bigger boars are a little bit more ballsy or brave, I guess you could say, and falling around those herds because they can take on a cow elk if they had to. They can hold their own,
Right.
and so probably one of the craziest experiences is what Travis filmed was an elk that was so exhausted and trying to chase a bear off its calf. Her ears were hanging drooping like a dog. She was so depleted and exhausted. Her tongue was hanging out. She's like this, and her ears were just like drooped like a hound dog. I've never seen like when Travis showed me the video. I'm like, I've never seen an elk like that before, just so exhausted. And unfortunately, that bear in particular, he didn't have a chance to shoot. Like he was just going around the corner, and there was the bear, and it ran off the dead calf elk. And so we posted it on our YouTube channel, just showing like what bears do. He's like, look at this brand new calf, couple bites, and that bear's back to eating more, right? Like,
Hmm.
so they're hard on calves. They can be. And that's why we're so focused on predator management with bears too. It's not like a wolf, like the bears aren't reproducing like a wolf is, but I'll still with a bear, I'll still if I still have my tag in my pocket, I'll fill it on a young bear if I have to. But I'll tell you though, like I love killing a big boar. Yeah, and they're very doable. It's very doable in finding a big mature boar that's got a lot of age to them, and you just got to know how to do it. Hopefully that made sense. But yeah,
Right.
it's fun.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, so like it does make total sense. Maybe like a good question that just focusing on because it is bear hunting within the season is like seasonal, right? It's like you said, everything's just changing. It seems like in the spring things change so fast. In some years it changes a little faster or a little slower depending on temperature and snow melt, or if we get a second blast of winter that comes through in late mid-April or whatever. But like those earlier season when things are kind of melting off the high country, the boars are denning. I'm guessing if I'm trying to think of like why a boar, like I didn't ever think of that. Why would a boar maybe be on the north slope? And I'm just picturing, without you saying it, north slope, because that's where the snow is going to melt last. That's where a bear is not going to get washed out. And I've heard that bears will den on north slopes. I just didn't clue to me the why. You explained really well the why. It's like, well, it's cool. If and that's not going to get washed out. Hey, folks, just wanted to take a quick break from the show to talk about my most recent partnership with a good friend of mine, Jake Collier, and his company, One Outdoors. One Outdoors provides a trusted place to purchase outdoor experiences, gear, and services. They aim to positively impact people and the environment by donating 10% of all of their net profits to Restoration Outdoors, a nonprofit, which in turn invests in mental health and conservation. One Outdoors offers trips around the globe, whether you're interested in hunting in Africa or fishing in Alaska, Patagonia, and more. They can customize your outdoor experiences and beyond just hunting and fishing to whitewater rafting. You name it, folks. If you can dream it up in the outdoors, One Outdoors can help make that dream come true. And I'm proud to be partnering with them and consulting on trips and hunts. So if you're interested in booking a trip of a lifetime with One Outdoors, you can reach me or reach out to me at Thomas at pursuingfreedomoutdoors.com. It's Thomas at pursuingfreedomoutdoors.com. Or you can contact me directly through Instagram, Facebook, you name it. But One Outdoors, folks, really excited to be working with these guys. So thank you very much for listening to the Pursuing Freedom Outdoors podcast, and we'll get back to the show. But, what would bear behavior be like in that earlier part of the season? What kind of bear behavior can you expect to see, the why, and how you're capitalizing it, maybe like that first 3 weeks of the season?
So I mean, and it
If
again,
that makes sense.
yeah. If you're, I mean, it depends on region. I'd say.
Yep. And you could totally like focus on, your type of region where you're hunting, and we can leave it up to future episodes with other guests to cover different types of terrain, man. But feel free to like just hone
Oh yeah.
in on this thick timber country.
Yeah, so I'll say, like, let's say it's a hard snow, right? Early
Yep.
season, a lot of browse. The reason why it's really good, I people kind of overlook that time of the year because there's a lot of bears still denned up, but whatever bears are out, they're gonna go to what little food there is. And so if there's a small patch of grass on the mountain, that bear, whatever bear comes out of the den is gonna find that patch of grass. And it's like it may be the only patch. And so they're gonna go to the food. Sometimes you'll see when they're on the way down the mountain is they gotta eat while they go. Like it's been a long time. They gotta get their digestive system going. And there's a term called girdling. I don't know if you've heard of it, but like you'll notice these trees. It's different than an elk rub or a moose rub, but you'll see the bark all ripped off the tree. And it's not the difference of a rub is the rub. It's like literally like, a deer and elk rub. I have to explain
Yep.
this to people because I've hunted with people that are experienced hunters who are like, oh, look at that nice elk rub from last year. I'm like, that's not an elk rub. That's a bear girdle. And I've had to explain it to people. So that's why I'm trying to explain it to everybody here as well, that a bear girdle, they literally rip the bark off and you can see it with their claws. They rip the bark off and they're trying to get sap off it. Like they're trying to get some sort of sweet or some sort of energy because they're right out of the den, and there'll literally be a line of it. So like a big boar or even just any bear, if he gets out of a den and he's just heading down to a lower elevation to find that fresh green, he's ripping bark on the way down. And so I've seen lines of it, just like where there'll literally be a line of bark where a bear will walk a little ways, he'll rip some bark off and he'll lick it up. He'll go a little ways and he'll do it again and he'll do it. And sometimes it's tree targeted, like it's specific species, like alpine. I've seen him do it with alpine quite a bit. Um, and then also if you live in an area with tamarack or larch, man, they go to town on those, and I have watched, it's so sad, but you'll see the Forest Service, they'll have a bunch of like a nice pretty stand of large, about 20-year-old trees. I'm in forest management, that's my occupation, right? So I'm very aware with how trees grow and stuff. You'll see this beautiful stand of larch, and someday it's going to be great merchantable trees for the next logging operation. A bear will go through it and about destroy a large portion of those trees that they've been wanting to grow. And it's so sad because it's just like, oh my gosh, these trees have been growing for 20 years and one bear goes through and just wipes out that's what really, my dad growing up in logging, he despised bears. Like if he had on his own property, cause he was trying to grow timber on his own property, he would always want us to focus on his property first before we went to the mountains because he hated the fact that the bears were going after his larch. He hated that. The problem is it wasn't like really a bear area, but a bear would pass through. And if a bear did pass through his property, it's like, oh, look at all these nice larch, like all that sap up. And so they just like go to town and just ruin a whole stand of larch. And so yeah, anyways, he wasn't too fond of that, but yeah, they'll do that on the way down the mountain sometimes. But another thing, which I don't know why sometimes God created things the way he did, but a lot of bears start as soon as they kind of wake up, they kind of go through this, like, I call it a delirious stage where they're just like, it's almost like they're super tired. And so it's like they've been sleeping for all these months and now they're trying to wake up. It almost takes them about a week or so for them to actually wake up. And it becomes a really good archery opportunity for people if you're wanting to try to archery a bear, but they'll eat and they fall asleep. They eat and they fall asleep. They're still kind of like in denning stage, like where they're just really tired. Sometimes if they
It's
first
kinda
wake,
sad. Sorry to
yeah.
interrupt, but it's kinda sad because I just picture, and this comes back to my law enforcement job, it just makes me picture a heroin or fentanyl addict on the nod. Just
Oh, yeah. Oh,
I
sorry.
wish
Yeah.
that
I guess it kinda is like that.
I wish it wasn't what came to my mind. It's kind of a bummer, but it's funny
But
because 'cause
I
I'm
get
just picturing this bear with a little tourniquet on his arm just on the nod.
like, yeah, I could only imagine. Yeah, because you have a lot of experience with that, and so I could see that being the first thing that comes to your mind.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Sorry to interrupt, but
that's
yeah,
funny you said, but yeah, they kind of do that. They're just kind of out of it, you know. But I've had this happen, and this is kind of and I'll just give a quick story so it makes sense. But like I said, they're so focused on food. They haven't had food for so long. Well, I was with a friend taking him out hunting, and we hit one of those grass patches. Like I was saying, we were going through snow, snow, snow. We hit a little grass patch. We bumped a bear. It took off running in the timber, the thick timber where it was still a lot of snow. And he was kind of bummed. He's like, crap, dang it. I was like, here's the thing, dude. I was like, this is the only grass on the mountain. I literally think if we come back within an hour, I think we're going to see that bear again. I think he's going to be back at that same grass patch. So we kept hunting and we didn't get into any grass. And so we did this big loop on the mountain. We came back and got back to that grass patch. That same bear is out eating in that grass patch again. And he smokes it at about 60 yards with the rifle. And it's because it's the only grass on the mountain. And so I don't I wouldn't veer away from the early parts of the year just because if whatever bears do come out early, they head to those grass patches, you know, because there's this window you're going to miss. Like this is the part you don't want it. You don't want to wait too late. Some people do who are like, oh, I want to wait for all the bears to come out of the den. That's great. And there is that window where you catch a bunch of bears out at once and you start seeing multiple bears a day. The downside is you wait too long and there's too much feed and everything's back.
right,
Bears are scattered. And then toward the end of season, you're just like, I can't even find a bear anymore. You missed your window. All the food, there's just too much feed. And all the bears are scattered on the mountainside. There's food from the bottom of the mountain all the way to the top. So you're going to have bears scattered throughout. And so it's finding that window of opportunity. The other thing I would say, and it's a lot about hunting techniques and how people hunt. You know, and so I'm going back to that, just like tactics, hunting tactics, just hunting throughout. Is I'll have hunters say, "Hey, this is the only time I can get off work. How do I hunt bears this time of the year?" And I'm like, and I always say this: you're on the bear's time. The bears are not on your time. So I'm sorry that that's the only time you get off work, but that's the suckiest time to try to kill a bear. So if you want to actually kill a bear, you're on the bear's time, you know?
right.
So let's say you get off work and it's like, this is the only time I have to get off work. And there's not a single bear out of the den and there's no food. I'm like, well, sorry, dude, that's your problem. Like you're not going to kill one hibernating under 4 feet of snow. If
Right.
that bear's under 4 feet of snow, dude, I cannot give you tactics on how to kill that bear until he is officially out of the den. And and so and I say that the same thing with elk and deer. You're on their time. They're not on your time. I know that us as people, we have our daily lives. The bear is on his own time. He is in his element and he is living his life to his full extent. And you're on his schedule, not yours. Same thing with prime time. A lot of guys are like, oh, I can't hunt evenings or I can't hunt early mornings. I'm like, well, you're missing the best time to kill a bear. Like you have to, once again, you're on their time. And so kind of going back to, I don't know, I'm not meaning, I don't try to diss people, but I'm sometimes like,
Well, I mean, I feel you, man.
yeah,
I see this all the time when I talk to people and about hunting and they're like, "Yeah, man, I just," especially people like, you get those text message friends where you're messaging about they're telling you like, "Yeah, I'm out right now. Like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that?" And I'll have people, especially when it comes to deer season or, maybe turkey season, but the people be message me about their deer hunt and it'll be like a half hour before sunset and they'll be like, or maybe like it is sunset and they have another half hour shooting light and they're texting me like, "Yeah, man, didn't see anything. We're heading back to the truck." I'm like, "Why?" And they're like, "Well, it's getting dark." I'm like, "Perfect, dude. Do you think, like, are you in a spot where you think deer are?" And if the answer is yes, just stay there till it's dark and then walk out in the dark. It's funny because I feel like that's said over and over and over again. And I'll admit, like the first little bit of time I was hunting, when I started hunting, because I started hunting as an adult. I mean, it was the simplest, stupidest concept that you just kind of had to figure it out. Once the first couple times I finally stayed a few miles back in the dark, I'm like, oh, there's the elk. Like if I had just been here if I had just been waiting, I would have been seeing these animals come out, especially like rifle season and stuff like that. And it turns into so much more ambush hunting rather than the calling. Got to be in the woods when the animals are coming out, man. Like it's just part
Yeah.
of it.
Well, and I think it's something to laugh about, and again, it's just these are funny stories, right? Like, how many times have I drove up the mountain where I'm like, "Okay, this is I need to hunt this bear," like, maybe it's a day I didn't have a lot of time to hunt. I'm like, "Okay, I have 2 hours to hunt bears. This is the time of the day I'm gonna hunt is the last 2 hours of the evening." As I'm driving up the mountain, bears hunters are leaving the mountain, like, they spent all day in the hot sun, glass and thinking that a bear with its winter coat is gonna wanna feed in 70 to 80-degree weather. It's like, you think a bear with a winter coat is gonna wanna do that, or do you think he's gonna find a nice cold shaded spot and he's gonna wait till the last part of the evening when the sun c when the earth cools down, and he's gonna be desperate for food because he hasn't eaten anything all day, you know? Because it's no joke, you know how many times you'll sit there on a mountain glass all day, see nothing, all of a sudden the last it's not even the last 2 hours, sometimes it's the last half hour, and all of a sudden, you'll be glassing all these openings, and all of a sudden 5 bears come out in different areas. And you're like, which one do I go after? Because I only have a half hour till dark, you know? So you're at a dead sprint and trying to get into range for a bear, you know? And a lot of our hunts you're going to see are like the last half hour before dark. And what was really funny, so going to a story, and there was some guys that we bumped into the woods, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, we didn't see any bears back here." And so we walked past them about not even, it was about 15 minutes later. They hear a boom. They come back and I have a dead bear. And they're like, "No, you're just right there, glass." And I'm like, "Yeah, you were leaving. You left right during prime time." But it was funny. So they were just leaving. They're like, "Yeah, we've been glassing that for hours and nothing was out." It
All
was
right, man.
hilarious. But I give a hard time over that. But you gotta, like, again, think like a bear. Like, I'm just like, a bear's not gonna wanna. Sure, they all still have to eat, so if a bear's fresh out of den, you'll see him feed midday. That happens. But, like, just like anything, like, when you got that hot coat on, do you think a bear's really gonna wanna be out on a hot, sunny day? Like, they'll lay right down. They'll go right into a cold, cold draw, lay down and just wait until the sun to go down. I've literally watched it where I watched a bear. I've watched bears do this where they'll go to it. They just like right at first light, they'll go right and just disappear into a cold, cold draw. You wait till evening, to the very last half hour, and that bear, like almost to where I thought that bear was bedded down, would pop right out back into the same opening, just like clockwork. And so, I mean, some of them are not really on the move. If they have good food, and
Right.
like, why do they have anywhere else to go? They're going to
Yeah. I mean,
stay
why
in.
would they want to expend the energy and the calories that are so precious for them at that point in time,
And I guess,
leaving food to
yeah,
find food?
exactly. And I guess I got off topic with this, but I don't like back to where, like I was saying, like, I don't know why God created bears this way, but they breed around that same time. So after that delirious stage, they'll go into this breeding stage almost right off the bat. So like you'll see like, but I see it toward the end of May and early June, you'll start seeing boars with sows. And so you'll be like, I'm like, why? And sometimes you don't have like a way of telling which, like you don't have like a way of telling, you know what I mean? Like, what's the best way to explain it? Like when you're trying to field judge the size of a bear,
Right.
there's a lot of different ways to do that. But sometimes, like at first, if you're looking through a spine scope, you'll see a big bear with a small bear. Like, oh, is that a sow with an older cub? No, it's a big sow with a really big boar. And and so he's just on her tail because he wants to breed her, and he's staying close by. And so sometimes you can get a double if she's a sow with no cubs, which the laws in Idaho show like you don't need to, as long as the bear doesn't have cubs, you can hunt her.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's off topic, but on the topic of sows, my first bear was an 18-year-old sow. She was awesome,
Innocent?
man. She's sitting here in front of me. I'll turn the camera around. She's up on the wall there.
Oh wow, yeah. I gotta so I know if she's got aged, so, like, because the fishing game age them all,
Yep.
but I killed a sow a while ago, but I need to check with him to see how old it was. It was probably one of the oldest sows I ever killed, and it was in one of those, like, roadless mount like, trailless areas, and she had no teeth left. I'm like, this is one of the type of sows that probably has never seen a person in her life. And she was like a black bear. She was like color faced black, but she had gray hairs growing on her face.
Oh,
Like,
that's
you know
so
how you
cool.
see like an old lab, like an old black lab, and he starts getting gray hairs around his eyes? She had that, and she had like no teeth. And I'm like, I mean, she had teeth. There just wasn't much.
Right. Yeah, worn down. That's how she was, man, just teeth, just yeah, that's
18 years
amazing.
old, that's a bear. And they don't get
Yeah,
big. Like cows don't really, they get a certain size and they stop. The boars are what keep growing. You don't get
right.
like yeah.
Yeah, for
How
18
how
years
big was
old, she was not that big. She's still a big bear. I mean, well up over, upper fives, as far as score, measuring out height wise. It's probably, I think she was about a 16, upper 16 to inch something skull. Wouldn't be like, I would say like the sort, but she's a sow. And, but
yeah, they don't
she
get
was when I brought her into the taxidermist, he called me a liar when I brought her in and spread her hide out. I was like, "Hey, I got this sow here. I want to get her rugs. She's actually my first animal period that I ever killed in my hunting
cool.
career." But brought her in, and the taxidermist was like, "Oh, it's a nice boar." I'm like, "It's actually a sow." And he's like, "No," and he had to look and like, "Oh, wow, you're right. That is a sow." So yeah, I mean, she was, I mean,
So
I'm super obviously happy with her. I love that I can sit here in my living room and look at her and remember that day. That really changed everything for me. Um, and then a funny side story for you and the listeners. You've actually heard this if you listen to the first episode of the podcast. Briefly to retell it, I was driving home after the bear hunt, and I got pulled over by an ISP trooper because I was on freaking cloud nine and it was late. My buddy was like, "Yeah, I gotta go, man. Like, good luck. If you need help skinning this, just hit up YouTube." And I'm like, "All right, man, I've never skinned an animal before, but sure, YouTube will be hopefully good." And I'm driving home and I'm just like pumped and I'm like not necessarily paying attention to all the stop signs and everything. And I'm taking like the back roads, not thinking like anything's a big deal. I'm in a hurry to get home. It was a bit of a warm day. Hide off the bear and get, for the meat. And I'm paranoid because I'm like, in my mind, meat's going to spoil in 10 minutes. Um, so I'm hauling butt home, get pulled over. And I'm like, "God, dude, like I know why I got pulled over because it didn't stop all the way for that stop sign." And this young, like pretty attractive blonde ISP trooper gal walks up to my window and she's just like, "Hey, pulled you over." I'm like, "Yeah, I know." And she looks down at the gun. I had a pistol on my hip. I'm like, "Hey, just so you know, we're on the same team. I'm actually a cop over here." And she's like, "Oh, okay, cool, cool. Like, can I get your license register?" I'm like, "Yep, sure." Oh, here it is. And I'm like, "Dude, trooper, I'm going to get a ticket for sure." And I said, like, I told her, I'm like, "Yeah, I'm really excited. Like, I just wasn't paying attention. I just got my first bear. It's in the bed of the truck." And she's like, "Oh, I didn't even see it." And I'm thinking to myself a little bit like, "Yeah, dude, like if I was your field training officer and you didn't see the bear in the truck, like what if that was a dude, like a bad guy?" But like, hey, situational awareness, you missed the bear in the bed of the pickup truck. But anyway, she goes back to her car, comes back, really nice, man. Like she, she's like, "Hey, obviously I'm gonna let you off for warning." And I told her, I'm like, "Hey, you don't just do whatever you would normally do. Like, don't worry about it." I did what I did. But she's like, "Oh, it's fine. Like just drive safe." She's like, "But I gotta ask you a question before you go." I'm like, "What's up?" She's like, "Is that a small bear?" And I'm just like, "Oh man, like, lady, that's not a question that you ask a man on like the first time you meet him. Like, come on, you're killing me here." I was like, "I'll have you know, it's a very average sized bear. Like all bears are pretty much that size." But yeah, that was funny, man. And then going into Walmart to get a cooler later, just covered in chunks of bear fat and blood with a gun on my hip, and it was pretty funny evening, but worked out.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Always a good time. All right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it was cool, man. But um, yeah. So that earlier part of just kind of back on track for the poor listeners, but uh, we're early part of April. This is kind of like recap. What I'm kind of understanding is that you're you know thinking about what the bear is doing and looking at the terrain. So the bear coming out of their den, they're probably denning on a shady, maybe north slope. So I'm looking for the first green in that higher elevation. And why does the bear going to be there? Because it's the only dang food source. Like to me, that seems so simple, but
Yeah.
Makes total sense. So when the mountain starts greening up and things get a little warmer, I can't tell you how many dudes in our area that say like mid-May, man, I don't even bother until mid-May. Say that's the time you go out. Other than shaded areas and really high elevations, there's not a lot of snow left. I mean, there is up in the higher country for sure, obviously, but a lot more green. As that's warming up and that food source is spreading, like what are you starting to target now? Like what are the bears doing at that point and why? Is it still food or and you kind of mentioned they're starting to look for rutting, diving into the bear rut.
Eating both because the salads are gonna be where the food is. So I'm always just focused on food mostly, on the food
Gotcha.
source and the best food, and also you gotta and again, a lot of in depth is on the master class, but like, those benches, so if you get like, you get to this point, it's like the south facing slope is good. There's pros and cons with the south facing slope. It's the first green. It's one of the places where it first greens up. The con is it's where it doesn't lush green, right? Like it's one of the first places that dry out, and so those really lush places. So it's like it kind of goes through a flip flop where almost like the cooler areas actually start holding bears better later on because it's more concentrated with precipitation. And well, another thing too is just benches. So like if you get in these areas where it's like there's kind of a bench where the water sits as like it kind of stays stagnant, it holds more moisture and you get the blades, like you get the weeds and the grass and a lot of other like, they have a more like, they have a bigger buffet versus just only south-facing still grass. They have a buffet worth of plants they can choose from, and we've noticed that skunkweed is actually that bears really love skunkweed too, and so there's a lot of different type of vegetation that bear really stick on, but like the swampy blades of weeds and grass, they really like that, and they'll hug to those places. But that's like much later in the season, like for later season, I noticed they start hugging to those places. They have an option now.
Gotcha.
It's like a bigger buffet for them, but those places are typically still under snow, and so
Yeah.
they're just always moving. And then it just like I said, like I mean, obviously, I think you'd say like, oh yeah, like most of the bears come out of the den around that time, so you're going to see more bears on the hillside. But again, it goes back to like what year. Sometimes it takes a long time for the snow to melt, and I've had it where it was a late winter, and it wasn't until the last week of March until I actually got into really good action. And a whole bunch of bears came out of the den. I've had it where we got like this year, if it keeps this up, the way the weather is lately,
Mhm.
have a pretty early year. Or
Yeah,
bears are
no
gonna be
kidding.
and so but we might get a surprise winter. Sometimes that happens in, February where you get a lot of snow or March where it holds the bears in their den longer. And so we might get a cold snap that might hold them in. So it
Yeah.
just really but that's just kind of how the system goes up, you go about hunting those bears. Sorry. But, like, yeah, bears they're they're smart animals, but the thing is, I think what's unique with the bear than any other animal is they're adaptable too. They're an omnivore. And so which I think it's one of going back to, like, I don't know why God created bears that way. I'll tell you one thing, I think, like, bears are probably one of the perfect creations of God in the sense that when the food source gets scarce, they go to sleep for months until the food comes
Right.
back. And it's like, there's no other species of animal like well, I guess I said that too early. There's other species that den up to and hibernate. But bears, I just think that's so cool that they actually like, "Ah, there's no more food left. Time to sleep." Couple months, a few months go by,
Yep.
depending on the area. Sometimes it's almost half the year. It depends where you're hunting, right? And then all of a sudden they wake up and it's like, all right, the food's back. It's like, and instead of all the other animals that have to struggle through the winter, they're just like trying to get by,
Right.
Um,
Yeah, they just like it's funny, yeah, it's like they sleep out all the hard they wake up and everybody's exhausted and beat up from a hard winter, and they're like, "Man, what's your problem?" Like,
yeah,
yeah, I don't know, I can't always pinpoint it, but to me, I just love bear hunting. Yeah, I love bears. I like to watch bears. To me, when the way they move is unique. There's just nothing like watching a boar scramble across a big, like an open clear cut. Just the way they move over terrain is different than an elk and a deer, and it's
Yeah,
crazy. They're really fascinating critters to spend time watching. And then if you're really lucky, and you do get to watch like a playful pair of cubs, I don't that's just freaking awesome. Man,
yeah,
they're such cool critters to watch, or a bear basking in the sun. Uh they just have
yeah.
personality.
I've seen that go the other way too, right? So, like, I guess I should have brought that up. So it was a really rainy couple days we had in, in the spring, and we were watching bears sleep on the warm rocks. It was like they wanted to get warm, and so they were like we were talking about the rocks. They would just like there would be this humongous boulder, and it was just so random. There would just be a huge boulder, and there was this one bear we were trying to get eyes on, and we're like, "Where did you go? Where did this bear go?" And there was this, and it almost looked like moss on top of the rock. And we're like, "Oh, that's gotta be." We're looking, we're, like, trying to figure out where this bear went, and for, like, an hour and a half, finally, we saw a head pick up on the rock and lay back down. It's like, this stinking bear crawled up on top of the boulder and fell asleep, and we started and throughout that week, almost every bear we saw in that area was just doing that. They were, like, crawling on the boulders and falling asleep on the rocks, and I was like,
I feel like
it was so kinda funny to watch,
yeah,
but yeah.
I feel like when it comes to, I mean, it can almost be said for any animal, right? It's like, especially like if you're looking for midday action or early afternoon action, I feel like if you go with what is the weather doing that's really consistent, is if it's cold all the time and raining. I mean, I think most people would agree. One of my favorite times to be in the mountains, no matter what I'm hunting, is when that rain breaks, especially when a little bit of sun peeks through, and hits a food source or something. It just seems like animals come to life. They're like, all right, like here's our chance. Let's go get some food. Um, it just seems to be a great time for movement, whether it's deer, bear, and then this conversely, if it's hot, your midday action's probably going to be pretty minimal unless you're hanging out near water sources that are in the shade, and timber and stuff like that. But then you have that evening time where there's a food source they want to get to, like you said, with the bear, getting into a like a meadowy area, finally cools off. That's the first thing they want to do. It's just that abrupt change just seems to be a tipping point sometimes, one way or the other.
It can be. I also sometimes go back to like when it's really hot out and it's hard to get bears to move in the hot sunny day. I've killed a lot of bears in the rain, believe it or not. Yeah, you're right. Like if there's a break in the rain, it will sometimes get them to move. But let's say if it's like raining for multiple days, they still have to feed. And what I
Right,
like about at that point, you can almost glass bears all day. What's tough with camera equipment, you're trying to film a hunt, it's hard to keep your camera equipment dry. But
right,
I feel like I catch a lot of bears midday feeding. And they feed and bed down on and off, so they kind of feed, bed down throughout
right.
the day, but you're kind of like I feel like I can kind of throw away the prime time idea, like, throw away the prime time thing, like, they're just moving all day on and off, you know? And
Love it.
especially if you get multiple like you're saying, well, one of my favorite days is if you get multiple breaks, if it like hard rain, little sun, hard rain, little break, you know? That gets things it's just everything's moving on and off throughout the day, and it's a good day to just to be out and glass all day long.
Which is
Um,
like spring, man. That's one of my favorite spring weather patterns is just those you can watch the here it comes, and then you just know like, all right, dude, like this is gonna rain hard for a little while and then it gets cleared up and it's man, it's so beautiful to be in the mountains when that's happening.
oh, yeah. So, yeah, no, I'm with you on that. So, yeah, it's fun. I'm looking forward to it. Like I said last year, I had a lot of work going on because well, see, I bought this property, so it was around that project. I had a lot to do on this property, and so I missed spring. And so, but now I got all my projects. Well, I mean, I got plenty of projects still to go, but the main one is done. Like, the main project is over,
Awesome.
and so, like, "Okay, thank goodness," which was we were kinda digging a lake out here at my property, and so and that took pretty much most of summer. So, um,
Yeah.
I was like so that was kind of exhausting, but I was like, "I know that it's gonna be worth it," and so anyways, this spring, I'm like, "This year, spring bear is happening. I'm gonna take a lot of
Love it.
time off," and got a
Love it.
lot of
Love it.
yeah, just gotta stay on top of the jobs that I have, which I've been doing pretty good as it is. Everybody knows, like, anyone that I work for always gets the like, some that's another thing tough as someone who owns a business, is they're afraid of offending their clients. Like, I have to tell my clients in advance about my priorities, and unfortunately, I've lost work because of it, where I'm just like,
Right.
this is my life, I can work my whole life, you know what I mean? Then you can look back, be like, "Oh, like, I just worked my life away." That's not
Right.
me. I have to live, and hunting's a part of that, and so there's always gonna be a client that wants to get this project done now. I'm just like, "If you want it done now." I mean, usually in the summer, I can whip those type of jobs
Right.
out, but if all when hunt season's here, I'm just like, "Find somebody else."
Yeah.
This is
Hey, dude, you're honest, man. That's important. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing,
Well,
they're
that's
prepared. Gotta prepare your clients for that, but I know a
yeah.
lot of guys just have a hard time breaking even though they got the money to hunt, they're just like, "Dude, I can't have these clients." I'm just like, "Dude, you run your business. Don't make them run you.
Right.
It's your business.
Yep.
Do what you wanna." But, I completely understand too.
No
Everybody has their
doubt.
own priority, and mine is hunting, so but
Yeah.
it gets me through it
Love it.
gets me through the rest of the year. I'm just like, after I have a good hunting
Yeah, man.
season, I'm like it's like, dude, like, I work for it, like, I work to hunt.
That tank gets filled up, man, and it holds you over
Yeah.
for the next one.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, I feel ya.
like, our trail can mule like, it can both those muleys, I'm like, that'll get me through till next season, for sure. But, I'm gonna go after bear, and I do love hunting bears too, and, well, too, it's just like, it helps me with some early wolf scouting too. I'm all about predator
Right.
management, period, so not just with bears, mountain lions, wolves, and I'm just like, with bear hunting too, anyone who's gonna hunt Idaho, Montana, Wyoming well, I guess Montana, their season isn't open during bear season, which bothers me to no end, but Idaho and some other states, you could you there's the you have the chance to still hunt wolves while you're bear hunting, and so I would always recommend anyone who's out bear hunting in wolf country, if you have the chance, keep not 1, but a couple wolf tags in your pocket. Because if you usually bump into 1 wolf, you see 2. They're always they're always grouped. They're always in a group, and so the worst thing I ever hear is when a bear hunter says, "Oh, I saw a wolf, but I didn't have a wolf tag." I'm just like, "They're not that expensive. Just pick them up."
No, keep them in your pocket, yeah, and they weigh nothing. No
And
excuses,
honestly,
yeah. Well, I mean,
I'd rather shoot a wolf than a bear. That's a different thrill. You shoot a wolf, dude, I tell you what, it's it's something else. It's something else.
yeah.
But, I mean, I prefer bears too, but a lot of my bear hunts end up now, my past couple bears I killed, I kinda do a duo, like, I hunt wolves and bears at the same time, so I'm like, I go to a wolf area, an area where I know there's wolf activity, and I bear hunt, just so that it kinda hires my opportunity in killing a wolf. I'm just like, I'm in a wolf
That's
mode,
cool,
so
man.
let's kinda go oh, yeah, and then calling, I mean, I guess we're kind of probably out of time, but I'm like, that's something else we could talk about forever is calling in bears. We've done that, calling in bears. And so
Yeah. Well, I
just
mean,
like
did I it right, you know, and so, like, I've actually not called in a bear. I've tried a few times to bust out calls and not had success with it yet, but from what I understand, I mean, you know, you're using, like, wounded fawn, fawn in distress, rabbit in distress, if correct me if I'm wrong, would be the typical calls that you're using, and, it seems it doesn't always just happen right away, and there's probably a trick to not giving up on it. Is that kind of the way I understand it to be? I'm definitely down. I don't care how long it's been, man, as long as you're good. With just a quick rundown on your process.
yeah, it just depends. So like let's say there's a bear, you know it's bedded in like in a timber patch. And it's like, dude, I'm just one of the bear that pop out. Like it's nice to run those. Because like the thing is like there's not bears roaming through you back and forth, right? And so it's like, is a call effective or not? You have to be in the vicinity of a bear, right? And so if I know, like, let's say I glass across some ridge and then I saw a bear like in an open spot and then he went in the timber and I'm over there, like within a couple minutes, I'm like, I know that bear's close. Run that call a little bit and see if I get him to pop out. But the thing is, you have to consider this when you run a call. It's no different than any other call. You're immediately giving away your location, right? So it depends, like, what type of hunt are you want to do on this bear? Are you wanting to pursue the bear without him knowing you exist? Or are you want him to come in and actually look at you and see who you are and you have a chance in busting your hunt? So you have to be prepared for that if you're going to use the call. They will come into a fawn call. Like it's a dinner bell. It's a predator, and it is very effective. So I like using the fawn call myself. I've called in and it works well as when you get muleys come running in to protect the fawn. And so you're like, okay, I'm running that fawn call correctly because I'm like, whoa, girl, whoa, girl. It's okay. I don't got a fawn. I'm not attacking your fawn. Those muleys, I tell you what, they get a little aggressive. Those muley does. They'll just come at a dead
That's really
run.
cool.
Boom. And so you're like, whoa, hey, just kidding. Just kidding. But I'm actually trying to
That's
help you guys
wild,
out.
man.
I've had a moose. This was honestly not even yeah, that's the other thing you gotta be careful in the spring is getting chased. We've been chased by a couple critters in the spring. Let's see. Yeah, I had a scary encounter with a moose, a cow moose, and she was a long ways off, and they make a funny sound. So, like, and you call in moose, like, during mating season, the bulls, "Wah, wah, wah, wah." Cows, "Meow." They make their sounds. But when they're, like, like, in a defense mode and angry mode, it's almost like a roar lion, like a roar from a lion, you know what I mean? Like, and so I was, like, hiking, and I've heard this even times when I'm trying to call an elk. Moose don't like elk in their area, they're really territorial, and I've heard that sound being made, like, "Is a bear coming in?" A moose shows up. Well, this was a scary encounter while I was bear hunting. It was off to a distance, and I think, moose have incredible ears. She heard me coming through, and I'm just hiking. All of a sudden, I hear that roar sound like, "Ugh." I'm like, "What is that sound?" All of a sudden, it's like it was across the draw. All of a sudden, it's like and it's like every time I hear it, it's like 100, it's like 50 to 100 yards closer. I'm like, "What is coming in at me?" And I get my pistol out, and I'm like, "What is coming in?" All of a sudden, this cow moose just came barreling right in. I'm just like, "Hey, hey!" And I shot at her feet to like scare her off, and I shot at her feet. She just froze, and I'm just like, "Don't come any closer, please. I don't want to have to answer this to the fishing game. Please don't step any closer." She finally turned, but I was like, "Whew." I mean, and then my brother Travis got charged by a cow elk in the spring, and so that was fun.
Oh, wow.
So
That's wild, man.
and that's the other thing to be cautious of in the spring is there's a lot of babies on the ground and a lot of aggressive mommies, and so
Yep.
and especially if you're in a spot where you're like hunting bears and you're like pursuing a bear who's actively trying to get elk, the elk are in defense mode. And so you're like, just be caution. I know if you look up the statistics, then people getting or getting mauled or stopped by an elk are low, but it's not zero. It's not zero.
Right.
And so
Yeah, well,
moose
I
is
could tell you, man, that other than grizzly bears, I think moose scare me more than anything in the mountains, man, as far as, like, happen chance encounters that I'm gonna get killed in the woods is especially mama moose in the spring, like you were saying, run into that all the time too, and I've had a young bull moose freak out on me when I earlier, I was just starting and getting into hunting, and I did the same thing. I fired my pistol at his feet, and it was frustrating because it didn't make him flinch even a little bit. I was like, "This is crazy, man." I ended up just hiding behind a tree until he finally, like, was, "I guess I'm just gonna sit here until he decides to go somewhere else." But we stood off and faced each other, but the pistol did 0 to make him worried. He was almost got more mad.
yeah. Yeah, that's nerve-wracking, especially if you get a rutton. You get a rutton bull, and we had it where you just like like if you draw a tag, which in Idaho is pretty hard to do, or in Alaska. Tana actually had us shoot. Well, thankfully, her being a resident, she doesn't need to follow the non-resident rule of shooting a 50-inch or wide bull in that area. So
Right.
she had to shoot a small bull. They just called in and it wouldn't leave, and in fact, it charged him, and she had a pistol shoot it, and so yeah, moose are I mean, some of those moose, especially during the rut, they have just no fear. You're just like, "Get out of here. Hey, get out of here." And they just sit there and just stare at you with a blank stare. You're just like, this ain't good."
They make you feel small
Any
when they do that, man. I mean, they make you feel small
Yeah,
because 'cause they're big, but oh,
yeah. And, like, it's like
yeah.
they look
Yeah, that's
right
wild.
into your Yeah. But no, it's fun. I love bear hunting. I'm not trying to deter people from it. But yeah, you also got to know your bears.
No,
So
I
if you're
mean,
hunting in the Grizzly area, always get to know your bears. Don't do something stupid there. I took my kids actually. Well, actually, no. So I did one day last year. So after work, I was like, let me take my kids in the mountains. And I did say I didn't hunt bears, but I really didn't. I guess I did a couple road hunts with my kids, but I wouldn't call it hunting. One day I got my I took my kids. I'm like, "Hey, there's bears," and I put my spotting scope up and I filmed with the Olin, put it on there
mhm.
so my kids can see it. And they're like, "Wow, Daddy, you should go shoot it." And I'm like, sorry, kids, that's the wrong bear. We can't shoot those ones." And it was there was a couple. I think it was one of those situations where I think it was a boar and a sow, grizzlies hanging out together. They were both pretty good sized grizzlies, and they were just. I didn't get enough good of it was about 1,000 yards, but they were. I didn't quite get a good look to see size comparison because some of those cubs, like from a sow to a cub, sometimes can get pretty big, but I didn't
Yeah.
have enough. I wasn't close enough to where I'm like, I can identify what I'm looking at there, but they were definitely grizz, like straight up. You could see that hump from a mile away on
Oh,
both
yeah.
bears and they were silver tipped. I'm just like, yep, those are definitely
Yeah,
grizz.
and, now with, in Idaho, you have to take and I think other states, we might have been one of the later states to implement it, but you have to take that test now to get your bear tag. Everybody had to take it this last year,
Yeah.
but,
I
and I don't think I have an issue with it, it's,
Did
I
you
don't want
fail it?
people shooting grizzlies. I did not fail it, thank goodness. No, I got him right. I just don't want people to. I definitely don't want people to shoot grizzlies. I would love to have a grizzly season, and that's a topic for a whole nother podcast too. But they are an issue, and up in Idaho, we were talking about a person that we mutually know, and that old timer in your area, and he had told me a story. I mean, he has grizzlies coming through his property on a regular basis all summer long, and he'll show me pictures of them right outside his house. And he had a quarter horse killed by a grizzly a couple of years ago, just killed and dragged into the timber and ate it in the timber. And yeah, they're an issue. But just on the whole bear hunting term, besides identifying them, like especially with the predator calling thing, um, you know, do you take any precautions, or since you usually saw that it was a black bear that you're calling to, are you typically not too worried about subsequently calling in that grizzly bear?
Yeah, if I see what I'm calling, I'm usually fine with it. Um, I think when I've hunted grizzly country my whole life, and so I'm kind of comfortable with it in a way. I still am on edge. I'm, I still say this that I'm the only family member that has not been charged by a grizzly. Everybody else has, and some of them was in Idaho, and some was in Alaska. And so so I still am like, maybe I'm dumb in that way where I don't have that fear just yet. I've been around them, I've seen them. They've always typically run the other way for me. But my biggest fear is walking through an alder patch, like a thick brush patch, and I just pick up that alder patch and there's a bear right there, you know what I mean? I feel like if I can at least get some ground, if I am in a visible spot where I have at least 50 to 100 yards minimum, I can give myself a distance. I will say this, I was a little bit scary. So I was wolf hunting one day and I was like, I was gonna start letting off a distress call. And for some reason I had a feeling not to do it yet. And I just waited a little bit longer. I was just setting up. And a sow and two cub grizzly walked out at like an archery range, just
Oh,
feeding,
wow.
just feeding on grass. So I was like, well, good thing I didn't start calling because we could have went bad really fast there. And she was like brilliant, like she was brilliant silver. She was silver as all get out. And what was weird with her is she didn't have a collar, but her cub had a collar. I'm like, huh, that's interesting. Why did she not have a collar, but the cub did? I don't know the reason for that. And it was just the other cub, so the sow and one of the cubs did not, but then the other cub did. I'm like, that I don't know if it broke off. I just felt like that's weird. But anyways, I won't get into that. But anyways, I was just like, I'm so close to this bear. I want her to know I'm here. So I care less about scaring that bear. So I'm just like, my gun's, next to me, and I'm just like waving at her, just like right here. So she kind of got eyes on me. She just stood up on her hind leg just to get a better look, and then she whirled and started to run, and her cubs followed her. And I'm like, okay, the other way. The downside is what scared me is she kind of ran the trail, the way I had to get back to the pickup. I'm like, no, 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 run that way. I don't want to bump into you again, you know? And so I'm like, you're running the wrong way. You're supposed to run that way. I'm trying to chase him the way so I don't have to bump into him again. But anyways, but I'm not, like I said, I'm not as fearful of the grizzlies as other people are. I've camped around them quite a bit, like the mules, and they've never messed with our camp, thank goodness. But it's usually during, I mean,
Right. Yeah. Like during it's my experience in Grizz country is they make me nervous to an extent, but I feel like I have a healthy nervousness, healthy
yeah,
appreciation for them. I mean,
of course,
they're crazy, scary critters, but it doesn't keep me out of grizzly country. You know, I've solo camped and hunted and backpacked in Grizz country, and I just pay attention and think about what I'm doing. And I'm the same way. I've yet to have a negative encounter, but I've been with people that I'm hunting with that have literally told me, dude, I'm going back to the truck because they saw a couple of grizzly tracks and it spooked them, you know, and it's, I get it, man. You know, it's not for everybody. They're spooky, spooky critters.
yeah, well, that's, I mean, for me, I'm like, well, good. If they're scared, I'm like, that's just more hunting for me. But yeah, track doesn't scare me. I'm in track, like even mule deer season in November. They're like, you know how many times I'll be in the, like, above tree line and those grizzlies are rolling rocks. Like, there was a big fresh track, like, this year in November while I was mule deer hunting, there's this big grizzly track, and he's rolling rocks, and you just see where, big boar. I mean, I would assume it's just, like, big track, big pad, and he's just sitting there rolling rocks by himself, trying to get his last bit of grub out right at the very top of the mountain, kind of digging through the snow. And I'm just like, oh, it's whatever. Like he doesn't, bears like a grizzly in the area really doesn't spook the muleys. And so I'm like, I usually, so I'm not like sitting there like these bears chasing my muleys around. Sure, if it's like when they're fawning, I feel like the grizzlies are affecting them, but I'm like, usually like they're not really chasing around full grown deer, but
Right.
because they can't really catch up to them. But what I do get upset about is when I see a mountain lion zigzagging in my mule deer spot. I'm like, "Hey, get out of there!" Because I know they're effective
Oh, yeah.
killers, and wolves are
Oh,
too. And
yeah.
so, get out of here! Thank goodness Idaho, we can shoot them if we got a tag. And so
Yeah.
every year I kill a mountain lion if I want to. So I'm like, anytime, I'm like, well, show yourself, cat. I'll take
Oh,
you
I
home with
love
me.
it, man. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's something. Hey, everybody. I just want to take a quick break to thank you for listening to the Pursuing Freedom Outdoors podcast. And to thank you today, I want to offer you a discount at 360 Sportsman. Head over to 360sportsman.org now and use promo code PF15. That is PF15 to get 15% off your subscription to any of their master classes listed on the website. You can learn anything over there to improve your skills at hunting, fishing, trapping, snowmobiling. There's going to be first aid classes up there. They've got all kinds of stuff. There's even a how to build a house class coming. So, anything you want to learn related to the outdoors or just making yourself a more knowledgeable human being, head over to 360sportsman.org. Use promo code PF15 to get 15% off any of their master classes. Want to thank you for listening to the Pursuing Freedom Outdoors podcast, and we'll get back to the show. You know, and that whole predator management thing, and I know you're really big on the wolf hunting. It's definitely become a thing of yours, and maybe if we get an episode together one of these days and talk about wolf hunting, but also just the importance of predator management. And I'm guilty, man. I have yet to make an intentional effort to go wolf hunting, and I really need to change that
Tough.
because
It's
I would
tough.
love to. I would love to kill a wolf.
It's so tough. I
So,
mean, it's one of those things you really have to, yeah, like we are talking about time off and it's like it's next level. Like it is, I will say, and no one's ever questioned me on it when I say it is the toughest animal to hunt in North America. Like there's a lot of species of different animals in America. I think I really will say that wolves are the toughest one to hunt and kill. They're so intelligent and you have to be on top of them. And, um, but when you get one, it's like I said, it's so rewarding. And they say most people that kill them it's accidental. And so I'm like, I'll take accident wolves all day.
for
But
sure.
I think the biggest reward is when you purposely hunt wolves and you kill them. And and I've done that quite a few different times. and just pursuing them, hunting them, and successfully taking them down. But you have to like they cannot know that you're onto them. They're because they're very in tune with their surroundings, and this with having dogs. That let's say you're in the woods and your dogs start to get a belly growl, and you're like, "What's my dog see that I don't see?"
Yep.
You ever have that with your dog? One of your
Oh yeah.
dogs? So it's like
Yep.
wolves have as well. I feel like in a lot of cases, I get close to an elk herd and stuff, but like wolves are just like they're so tough because they have that sixth sense. But also their presence in some way, like I've had moments where I feel like my sixth sense has kicked in and I'm like, I'm close to a wolf pack. Like I sense it, like I felt the feeling before. And even my brother has said the same thing where I'm like, I don't say anything. And Travis like, I feel like I'm close to a wolf pack. I'm like, Travis, I can feel the same way. Like we do a quick howl, all of a sudden the wolf pack lights up next to us. We ain't hear nothing. Like not a stick pop or nothing, but we both had a feeling that we were near a wolf pack. And so it's like when you're around wolves enough, you feel that you get that feeling. I can't explain it. It's a sixth sense. But if you've been around wolves enough, you'll know what I'm talking about. And guys that have been
Yeah,
around wolves
that's
do the same exact thing. It's a crazy feeling. It's like your hair standing up or you're just like on that and you're like, it's like this like eerie feeling, like a scary movie. You're like, something's not right here. What's happening? Or like, I feel like the woods you feel like you're being watched. Does that make sense? Feels like you're being watched,
absolutely, man.
and it's like so concrete. You're like, we're definitely being watched by something. I don't know what it is,
They're
but
uh
and and
they're
it
wild
happens.
critters, man. I know there's a lot of hate to wolves, and it can be very frustrating when you watch good elk herds diminish, right? And or deer, all the ungulates getting hammered by wolves, excuse me. But I do like having them around. I think it's great that we can have populations to hunt. I wish that they didn't affect our ungulate populations the way they do. But I will say, man, there's a little piece of me that's, when it comes to being an outdoorsman, being in the North Country, in the woods, in the mountains, when you hear a wolf howl, it's like, it's a little bit freaking cool, man. It's spooky. To me, it's like the setting, right? Like, well, there's the ambiance of being in the freaking mountains, like a mountain man in the 1800s, hearing the wolf howl. And I'll never forget my first wolf howl, hearing it in the mountains, man. Like it's ingrained in my mind forever. And then being in your area hunting bears in bear camp every night, man, just listening to wolves howl all night long. It's they're wild. I'm glad they're on the landscape, but I sure am glad that at least in our state we can manage them. I'd love, this is the pot calling the kettle black. I would love for hunters to do more wolf hunting and trapping and get out there and manage them, because that's what it's going to take to bring our elk numbers back up. But I'm glad they're around a little bit.
I'm like 50-50. Well, if you were to ask me that 20, like let's say 2011 till about 2020 or 2019, I'd like straight up disagree with you. But as of lately, we've had the numbers been managed pretty well. And I like don't feel like it's as bad. And I'm like, I don't care as much, like when I see a and I actually enjoy hunting them. So in some weird way, secretly, I don't like to say it out loud, but I'm like, sometimes I kind of want the wolf pack to spike back up so I can start hunting them again a little bit more. Cause my previous hunting experience at hunting wolves, I've actually had to leave town and find other wolves to hunt because we just, I'm just like, yeah, like we have some, but they're not like we did, but I'll tell you what, if it was back in I'd like to say 2016, and you were hunting this country. Maybe you were. I can't tell you how pissed off I was. I went 18 days without an elk eagle,
Right.
and then I got ambushed by a wolf pack. That's when I stuck
Well, I
to
could tell you, like,
and I was like, trust me, there was nothing that I wanted more than every wolf to be gone on the landscape at that time. I was so pissed. I was like,
I can 100% appreciate that perspective. And that's what it is. Totally is, man. It's perspective, right? Like for me, when I came into the scene around here,
yeah,
I don't know better. I don't know pre-wolf days hunting. So, for me, I'm like, I don't have no idea what it's like to go hunt and with elk numbers the way they were. I know what the struggle is now, and to me, this is as good as it's ever been because this is all I know.
Yeah. Well, no, and it's definitely we've
So
had
I
a
have
rebound.
that perspective a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know how like I could do a quick rundown really quick. I know we're probably out of time, but it was really good. Like, yeah, my teens were it was incredible hunting around here. And and the wolves just and I won't go into the detail, but it's just like the devastation that wolves did was just insane. And the biggest mistake was not allowing us to hunt them the time we should have been. Like if we got on top of it right off the beginning, it would have been fine. And then, but now we're starting to see what like I consider as a rebound. We're seeing animal numbers come back. But there's areas that like what's weird is like there's areas that seem where the elk have found a way to adapt to the wolves. There's other areas where the elk just cannot figure it out. It's like if you don't keep the wolves out of there, the elk just are gone. Like they can't make it in there. It's just like they're not able that habitat, they're just not able to adapt in there because it's just too much of an like there's just so many areas for wolves to ambush elk herds. But like in some areas where like elk have like, okay, like we can kind of hang out in the cliffs and stuff, those areas seem to still hold elk herds even when wolves are bad. And so we were kind of actually hugging to hunting more open country around that time because the elk were kind of finding out like if we can spend our time in the openings, we can kind of get eyes on the wolves coming in, right? But in the areas that are like super thick, like thick all the way to the top of the mountain, those areas got wiped out clean. And those were the areas where we had like the big old or what we call mystery bulls, those bulls that would get old and they get the 350, 360 class bulls. They were gone. They just completely wiped out like that. And they're starting to come back to an extent, but like, man, you got to be on those wolf packs. You got to hunt them hard to keep them out of there. And, but like I said, like, I mean, again, though, like, I notice people like, well, like people from Bozeman, for example, and they'll say like, "Hey, I don't, for me, I think it's kind of cool to have wolves." And I think it is when, like, because Bozeman really doesn't have a wolf issue, right? There's places where there's wolves, but people don't have wolf issues.
Right.
Like, there's parts of Montana, there's parts of Idaho that are the same way. Like, some people in southern Idaho, they're like, "Yeah, like, like I don't really see a problem with wolves." And I'm like, and I'll hunt down there. I'm like, yeah, your elk numbers are great. And I haven't cut a wolf track yet. Like, I also don't see an issue down here. And there is some parts of Southern Idaho that do, but like you look at like, I'll use the example of Montana, like, cause it's very 50-50 with Montana, like with people
Mhm.
saying, oh, wolf problems are bad. I don't notice it. But if you actually look at the studies, like only a fourth of Montana is like stacked with wolves. You look at like the studies of where the majority of the wolf packs are, it's a fourth of Montana. You start getting into more into like the central and eastern part of Montana. They say there's wolves, but it's like very minimal.
Right.
You get in that like the western side of Montana, and it's just like condensed. Like the herd or the packs are condensed. There's packs throughout, but
Right.
they're so condensed. And it's just like, they'll just wipe out drainages, like, if you gotta be on top of them. And the problem is with those wilderness areas, like the Selway, I
Yep.
mean, it's just hard to manage them. It's hard to get a trapper in there and to manage those herds where you actually see what like, it was just back in the day, and yeah, like you said, like, we got to experience it. I camped with dad in the lock saw, like, we hunted the lock saw growing up, and, I mean, yeah, dad always talked about how we would just be scared to death because the bulls would scream right next to our camper, and you know what I mean? And so, but we truly did get to experience the heyday. And like I said, the numbers are coming back. And I'll say this, I don't have the grudge on wolves like I did before. And I think it's because I'm seeing, okay, there's proof that management works and that we can take care of them. And honestly, I do enjoy hunting them. Therefore, it's okay for 'em to be around in a way. It gives me something to do. I tell you what, there's trappers that'll say the same thing, like, and I won't give the name, but there's a guy who's really skilled at trapping. He's already got 5 in the past month, and, he'll secretly say, "I kinda want more to be around," because he loves to trap 'em. That's his
I like
hobby.
the success, right? Yep.
He likes
Yeah,
it,
I
and
actually
And he's kind of sad when he's like, "Oh, I think
Almost have
I
a
shot
feeling I
the wolf."
know.
You might.
Yeah, I have a feeling I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I mean, I know there's more than one wolf trapper up there, but I know of a
Right.
really successful one that I've run into. Uh, and Dan is like, I always like, dude, if I could buy you a beer, like shake your hand. Guys like that are making such a good impact, right? Like you making
Yeah.
such a good impact, and it's almost like I feel a debt of gratitude because when I'm coming into the area to hunt and there's critters, like it's because we've, like you said, they've gotten managed and they've gotten on top of it, and I don't know better. Like I just know that people complain
Right.
about.
I didn't mean to give you such a hard time. Didn't mean to give you such a hard time.
No, 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 no. No, it's great. Like this is awesome, man. This is conversation. And I would take a lot more than that to ever offend me. Like, and I just appreciate the perspective. But what I'm just saying is like, it's cool because it's the proof is in the pudding, like you said. And I really appreciate that folks want to go out there and do that. And that's why, you know, like when I was working with that outfitter and what I would encourage outfitters to do, man, is if you're in an area where you're struggling with numbers, like rather than complain about it, or if, the state's not giving you the allocated tags that you need or want, I mean, dude, be a predator hunting. If you got a wolf problem, why are you not selling wolf hunts? Get good at figure out the wolf hunting and sell wolf hunts and knock these critters back a little bit and manage them. I think that's a lost opportunity on a lot of outfitters in, um, states where wolf hunting's allowed and wolves can be a problem. I think incentivize. I mean, there's already incentives out there, right? You can get bounties
Uh,
on wolves and all kinds of stuff.
if I if Montana would ever listen to me, I don't think they ever reached back out to my email. But I'm like, I I, I was just like, you know what'd be awesome is if there was a program where it's like, okay, let's say I go out and I kill a wolf in Montana. I'm guaranteed a deer and elk tag, or I'm guaranteed at least a deer tag in Montana. Like I still have to pay the price, but I don't
Right.
have to put it for the drawing because I just
Right.
saved so many deer. And it's like,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
like they should have a program like that. Like, if you're going to be a non-resident that come out here and you're willing to do that, we'll issue you a tag so that for a thank you. And it's like, I think no offense, Montana. I think you like to I think you love your predators. Just kidding. I
No,
understand. It's the process.
man.
Yeah, I know. But
The last thing I'll say on predators, I mean, because the problem is people do love their predators, right? Especially if they're like the non-hunting community loves predators, and it is a problem in this country the way that we've gotten with our predators. And I'm all about it, man. Like, animals need to be protected because they're endangered. Like, whatever. I'm not talking crap on the Endangered Species Act. It's just I don't like the fact that it's been weaponized to protect animals in areas like the Greater Yellowstone, where we have grizzlies that we could hunt grizzlies to an extent in Idaho, no doubt about it. Like we have, I think we totally have a population that we could harvest out of sustainably. And then, but I mean, one of the things I listen to when it comes to predator management, and I think Alaska, and maybe you know more about it, but to me, that's a highlight on predator management. Um, that state is dealing right now, and I'm a little uneducated. So if I speak poorly to anybody from Alaska listening, you're like, you're not even from Alaska. See, you don't know. Sorry, man, but I'm going to say it anyways. Alaska example of they have caribou herds like, the Western Arctic herd, the Machatna herd that are just absolutely suffering. Right. And from the way I understand it, predation is a huge factor. A lot of people blame hunting and over hunting, but to me, I think predation's a huge factor in that. Sheep numbers, I think it's predation. You have wolves, bears, coyotes, and then the big one that no one wants to talk about, and I love it, man. I heard an old timer outfitter up there talking about this, man, is eagles, right? Like, want to
yeah,
save sheep, manage eagles. You want to save mountain goats, manage eagles. He talked about before it was a felony, they used to fly around in aircraft and with shotguns and blast eagles out of the sky
fair.
to save, baby goats and baby sheep and, aircraft management of grizzlies and wolves. And they kept their big game herds thriving through that effort.
And without getting any details, because obviously we don't want to mention areas, but so, the outfitter, you were saying that you guys bought like the outfitting business from an individual. Well, he bought an outfitting from another individual who I'm very well aware of the fam. Unfortunately, the individual passed away. But in the past, back in the olden days, he was killing eagles for $25 a piece. He's getting $25 per eagle he was killing back in the early 1900s. There was a bounty on all predators in America, and it was like
Yep.
I think the
Well,
mistake I think that huh?
as I say that that individual that we bought that from, and again, I won't say his name.
Mhm. It
I
was the one that
but
he
he
bought.
talked,
It was yeah, so you would
yeah,
probably know then.
but the one that I bought it from, he talked about growing up in your neck of the woods, and there was bounties on bears, and they would go kill bears in their dens. Like
Really?
that was a thing that was like normal for them as teenagers, was like killing denned up black bears and making money.
That's so
Like,
funny. Yeah, there's some pretty I mean, I don't know, it's just fun to see the old, like, the lawless times, you know? They say
yeah,
if it's fun, it's probably if it's too fun, it's probably illegal, but, like
yeah,
or it'll probably actually become illegal, but, back then, there's a photo of a bunch of guys with, like they had, like, 15 mountain lions hanging on a post, and it's just like back then, there was just, like, a bounty on all predators. They were just, like, killing every predator in sight, and probably part of the big spike in the late 1990s with all the deer and elk numbers too, just get rid of the
yeah.
predators. I think the biggest mistake that was made though so going back to, like, the wolf, I think the biggest mistake that was made is we extinct the wolf down here. I feel like if we would have never done that, we would have had a better way of managing them, and
Oh,
because
for
that's
sure.
probably the biggest ammo the environmentalist groups use is that we extinct them once. Why do we trust you now? When in Canada and in Alaska, they've always been allowed to manage their wolves because they've never extincted them in the first place. And so for
Yeah,
them, it's like that's never been an issue up there. And so they've always been allowed to hunt them almost like coyotes, right? Down
yeah,
here, we've pretty much lost our privileges. And then now we're trying to get them back is what it is. And
right.
now we're having serious trust issues, but obviously these big environmentalist groups, it doesn't matter what you show them, they just don't want anything. They don't even want a
Yeah,
coyote trapped or killed. And so, but it's just trying
right.
to get the courts to convince that we can hunt. We promise we're not going to wipe
Yep,
them out this time. Promise we're not going to use poison on them. Promise
right. Well, the courts and the
we had different.
non-hunting public, yeah. The
That's
courts
hard.
and the non-hunting public, like, just because people don't hunt doesn't mean they're anti-hunters, and those people are the ones that we gotta convince, right? Because the
It's tough.
majority of people don't hate hunters, they just don't choose to hunt themselves, and if we can convince them
That's what's tough
that, "Hey,
about
we're gonna do this right."
that's what's tough with wolves is because even the hunters mostly leave. Like, if hunters never experienced a lot of issues with wolves, they tend to lean on being more for the wolf. Like, we've had it like, that was a big controversy on our YouTube channel when we kill a wolf. People are like, "I understand a deer and elk because I grew up my whole life hunting deer and elk. I mean, we eat those, but you can't eat a wolf. In my opinion, you shouldn't shoot anything that you're not gonna eat." And it's like, if you bel I was like, to me, it's a responsibility. It's like, you don't deserve to hunt a deer and elk if you don't hunt a wolf because you're you're part of the ecosystem. Every predator that moves into an ecosystem has to fit himself in somehow.
Yeah,
If a wolf moves into the ecosystem, he has to kill mountain lions and bears for him to fit in the ecosystem. As much as we talk about deer and elk, you don't even realize how many predators wolves kill.
yep,
You know how much black bears you think wolves kill? You know how much black bear hide? Like I like to break wolf poop to see what they've been eating.
mhm.
You know how much bear hide I've seen in wolf poop?
Well, at the end of the day, man, like, we're stewards of this planet, not uh lead to stand by and just watch things happen around us. We're stewards. Stewardship means you play an active role, and there's nothing wrong with managing predators, whether people like it or not. We're here on the landscape, as an animal, and we're here to stay. People aren't going anywhere, and we're involved. We've got our fingers in it. We're involved. Um, you know,
Yeah.
whether you're religious type, mind frame or not, I am. I believe we were given this planet to steward. I'm all for managing our predators. And there's uses for predators too, man. Like, to kill a wolf, there's not like you're just wasting the animal. There's uses for it. But I think it's important to remember, like you said, you kill a wolf, how many deer did you just save, right? And it's not even deer that we can go hunt, but it's deer that are going to survive and continue to for that species. We're taking care of our wildlife is what we're doing. And
Yeah.
predator management's taking care of wildlife.
Well, if wolves only had 1 pup a year, I think there would be a lot more like, we would be a lot more cautious, right? We'd be like, "Okay, let's only kill a wolf a year, to keep the balance." But being that they have litter pups a year, it's like we as a steward and like you said, like, you gotta give respect. The wolf is a wolf. It's just trying to live. It's
Yep.
no different than any other animal. It's just trying to survive. A wolf pup is born in the snow somewhere, and it just wakes up and it's like, I gotta kill this rat, you know? So we gotta give some form of respect to the wolf that's just doing what it's been born to do. But when you have like, thing is though, we've seen what happens to ecosystems when predator and even it's like, what did people do before? Or what did predators do before people moved to America? And the guess what? It wasn't crawling with wildlife. Like there's sections of it that we hear from Lewis and Clark, but there was a lot of sections that were what I would call dead zones.
Yep.
And it just so wolves have always there's always been this like it's a cycle of like predator populations get up, ungulates drop, and then the predators starve themselves to death, their population drops, and then it may be 10, 20 years until the wildlife number, the ungulate numbers come back up. And it's this nasty, ugly cycle. Nature's brutal. And what
Sure
Alaska
is.
shown with studies is areas where wolves are managed, they have more had a flat line of healthy, like the numbers have been very steady. Like
Right.
healthy wolf number, moose, caribou, everything. When you manage everything properly, you have more of this number. You have a steady number of wildlife. You don't get those huge influxes when,
Right.
so it's like you have to be responsible. I think there's like being a steward is being responsible, right? I will be honest in saying, I mean, I've read it's very boring. So I have a hard time listening the whole, like what listening or reading the entire book of Lewis and Clark and their journeys. But they were they were just killing. I mean, it was so funny. I'm like, you
Oh
guys are
yeah.
trained. Why are you shooting everything on sight? Like they're just like, oh, like they're like in their journal, it's like, oh, I killed like 10 deer and like
That's true.
4 elk today. It was fun. It's like, why? Why are you shooting? Like, don't
Yeah.
you want to save the animal? You guys have got a long trip. Like, everybody's just shooting for the heck of it. And the
Yeah.
thing is, they
Well,
didn't they didn't have wildlife biologists sit there studying wildlife
yeah.
population, and so now we have the technology to study wildlife behavior and so leave it to a wildlife biologist and to do these studies. We have like listen to the science. I guess we've heard that, right? Listen to the science. And obviously, Colorado want to listen to that with their wolves. Ballot box, call out the ballot box biology. Um,
Yeah.
I'm getting off topic there. We're supposed to talk about bears. Sorry. Uh,
Hey, it's awesome, man.
yeah,
No, but
but
I mean, at the end of the day, dude, you're spot on, and I love these conversations. And I don't think they can be had enough, just because the more exposure these topics get, hopefully we can educate a few folks to, if the ballot box biology becomes a thing, you vote the right way. At the very least, man, maybe you can send off some letters and encourage some of your legislators to help us do things the right way, man, especially encouraging senators right now, or I think the House rather right now, to vote the right way on delisting wolves is a good one to be
sure.
paying attention to. And because that would be huge, man. That would open up a lot of opportunity for state management and be a good thing. So
Yeah,
good conversation to be had. I'm glad we had it. And like I said, man, I'm just really glad that you came on the show. Lots of valuable stuff, dude. I love the history of the view and your family and stuck in the rut. Love talking bear hunting and love talking predator management for sure. So
yeah,
it's good stuff, man. I think it all has value.
yeah. No, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And
Yeah, absolutely. Well, any closing thoughts or anything that maybe folks could look forward to for Stuck in the Rut, and also obviously like for the chance that somebody hasn't found you yet, how do they find you?
I mean, obviously, our YouTube channel, Stuck in the Rut with an N, so it's not IN. So Stuck in the Rut is so go ahead, check out the YouTube channel. I'd say we do have a podcast. I mean, we got we got the podcast where we've activated it again, and so we've had a really good responses with it in the past. So we're getting it back activated as well. The biggest thing is we got the master classes going on 360 Sportsman. even before I met Taylor, I had master classes going, and it was just hard for me as one person trying to keep up with the website, update the website, and all that. So when Taylor came through, who owns 360 Sportsman, and he has like multiple outdoor courses for people. He asked me to join on, and I got to know him a bit, and finally I decided to join in with him. So we have a mule deer masterclass, elk, whitetail, wolf, and bear. And then there's more to come. So anyone who's interested in learning how to hunt some of these species, you can go ahead to 360 Sportsman on Stuck in a Rut. And with all the species, I'll say this. I feel like it's the same like with bear or anything else. We're not just teaching to hunt a specific species. We're teaching you to hunt the mature. If it's elk, not teaching you to just hunt elk. We're teaching you how to hunt big mature bulls. Bears, same thing. We're teaching you how to hunt big mature bears. All the information we gave, or I gave about bear hunting, I just gave you a sliver of what's in the masterclass. That was just a sliver. And so there's a lot of information there. If you're wanting to successfully harvest a big bear this spring, I highly recommend checking that out. You don't have to buy it. You don't have to look at it. I could care less. That's up to you guys. But at least if you can, will you at least put the website there so they can check it out if they're
Yep.
interested?
Well, cool thing is,
Cool.
there's Taylor, the awesome guy that he is, he was on a couple of episodes. So hopefully listeners are familiar with through that episode a few back about 360 Sportsman. And you folks, when you're listening to this, you'll hear the commercial break because Taylor was our first sponsor of the podcast. And so if you head over to 360 Sportsman, get your bear class signed up for it and use promo code PF15, you get 15% off that class or any of the other classes from Tom here, which highly recommend taking a look. So yeah, 360sportsman.org and go over there. We'll have the link in the show notes. You can go on my Instagram. I've got the link in my bio and use promo code PF15. You get 15% off these classes. And that's a really good, a lot of bang for your buck. Go back if you haven't listened to that episode because you'll see, man, it's not just a one-time class. It's not just a little bit of material. I mean, you get a lot of access to really good material and you get to actually be in contact with instructors. So it's a lot of bang for your buck. I highly recommend that for sure. Yeah. Well,
Thank
thanks,
you.
man. Thanks so much for coming on the show again. Appreciate you. Humbly honored to have you on, and maybe we'll get you back on to do some more specific stuff later when you got time in your busy schedule. But appreciate it. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to everybody next week for sure.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks again. And if this resonates with you, I want to welcome you to the tribe and encourage you to share this podcast with your friends. Hit subscribe and follow us on Instagram at Pursuing Freedom Outdoors. And if you or someone you know has a great story about life or the wilderness, I want to share it. You can shoot me a message on Instagram or email me with all inquiries and questions at thomas@pursuingfreedomoutdoors.com. That's Thomas, THOMAS, at pursuingfreedomoutdoors.com. Until next time, get out there, get after it, and pursue freedom in the outdoors. Before we get started, I want to thank our first partner, Response Ready Medical. Response Ready Medical, bringing our customers the best quality training and equipment for the worst case scenario. Response Ready Medical's vision is to be the leading provider of emergency preparedness solutions across the United States, empowering communities, organizations, and individuals to respond confidently and preserve life during critical moments. Offering same-day certification, all Response Ready Medical classes are instructed by nationally registered and state-licensed firefighter, paramedics, law enforcement officers, and hospital staff. Classes currently being offered by Response Ready Medical include CPR and AED, CPR, AED, and first aid, emergency trauma care, child and babysitting safety, CABS, backcountry medicine, and wilderness first aid. Your premium partner in emergency preparedness, Response Ready Medical.